I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naimah. We're three Black moms.
How well do you know your children's friends? Well, you might not think it matters, but just think if your child says, "See you later, Ma, I'm going to my friend's house," and you don't see them again for 2 days, would you know who to call? Do you know their friends' addresses, their parents' names? Not just if your child is a minor, but what about if they are an adult? Sometimes we think it doesn't matter. But the reality is, sometimes people turn up missing and nobody can think of where they last saw them or who they hang with or what they were wearing. And if you don't know who to call, then how can you trace them down? And even if they're accused of doing something, can you say, my child would never have been with that person doing that thing? Do you know your children's friends? Well, let's talk about it, sisters, because we have grown children now. We might have known their friends when they were children, but now that they have their own lives, do we still know the names and how to reach their best friend, their associates, their co-workers? What do you think?
Well, I'll start because my child is still at home. She's moved back home after college, and even through college and even now, I know her friends. For one thing, we've always encouraged her to have her friends over, so I get to know them that way. Uh, we do this funny thing in our family where we always have each other's location. That was her suggestion and not ours, so we always know where we are. And her friends have always kept they keep each other's locations, and that was when she was in college and she started doing that, and now she'll do that. So yes, I do know her friends. I know their names. I know where they live, even if I don't know their addresses. And a lot of times, I actually still have their phone numbers. And more importantly, they have mine. So we have had this because young people go missing. And if they're used to going out and staying away for 2 days or 3 days and you not hearing from them, if there's something wrong, you may not know until it's too late that there's something wrong. So I've been very fortunate is that time where they were secretive, that passed when she was a teenager, and now she wants that transparency. But sometimes it's hard when they're teenagers because teenagers don't want to tell you who their friends are or where they're going or what they're doing. And I think that's something that we should explore, how much we should push for that. Barbara, what about you?
When my kids were teenagers, the reason that I did know their friends is their friends and their friends' parents is because we were hobnobbing together over different sports events. They were all involved in swimming, and so there were always these swim competitions. And so I got a chance to meet a lot of the other teammates' parents through those kind of interactions. I will say during middle school, it was the same thing. I knew parents because they were involved in either track or basketball. And so we were still interacting. As adults, now my children have moved away. In fact, two of them don't even live in the same country. And the reason I actually know any of their friends is because we have reached out to them. Like when I visit Lavinia in China, I got a chance to meet some of her friends that are her close friends there. And then with John and his wife in Australia, of course, I got a chance to meet not just their friends, but also their church family. And I was there long enough to build up relationship with all of these people. And I have everyone's phone numbers, everyone's addresses, and this is just because we reached out to each other during the visits that we had. When I think back about the times when they were teenagers and doing all their wild stuff, staying out really late at night, sneaking out of the house at night, and all this crazy stuff, I had their parents' phone numbers and I could call up and say, okay, they were supposed to be home at this time. Do you know where they are? This kind of thing. I didn't have a lot of the missing for 2 days and not knowing where they were, that kind of thing. I didn't have those particular worries. And I'm really glad of that. But we did have incidences where if I didn't know where they were before it got to be a worrisome thing, they had already checked in. They were pretty good about checking in.
Hmm. Well, the thing about it is that if your children are independent or feel like, okay, I'm grown now, I don't need to have people keeping tabs on me, they don't check in just because they have reached the age where they feel like they don't want you in their business. So how do you handle that when they don't want you in their business and they're 18 and over and decide not to necessarily tell you when they're spending the night with someone or going away on a trip, or maybe they are at a party or something, anything that they don't necessarily want you to have an opinion about? How do you deal with that when they don't check in?
Well, I think it's like that whole real estate thing about, what's the most important, three most important things: location, location, location. And and I think that is what works for us, is at least having an idea. Now it's hard if your child has his or her or their own place. They don't need to check in every time they go out to a party.
Right.
I didn't do it. Never lived at home back, by the time I left college. When I left college, I moved away and never moved back home. So every time I was going to go out, it just didn't make any sense. But when our parents did come to visit me, I did take them around. They did know who my coworkers were. They did get to know everybody. And Daddy, when he came to visit me in Nebraska, everybody for weeks was talking about meeting my father. Well, it was pretty obvious
Yeah.
that he was my father. I was the only black in 3 counties. So obviously we were related. But that was, but I think it's harder now. And I think what you have to do is build that trust before, because there is going to become a time when they don't want you to know. And believe me, there were times where I thought Sarah was someplace and I found out maybe months, maybe years later, that what I thought was happening was not what was going on, and that wasn't where she was, and that wasn't what she was doing. So
Mhm.
so I found that out later, but and I wished, in some ways I wished I had kept a closer tab, but I had trusted her. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. And
Yeah.
I think when they know you trust them, they feel bad if they break that trust, because they know when they're sneaking around and when they're doing the wrong thing, and eventually that will eat at them. But in the meantime, you have to say, well, listen, I need to know where you are. I need to know that you're safe. I need you to check in. I need you to, answer my text, and don't tell me that you didn't see the text, because every teenager is always on their phone. So you know, constantly. So you need to check in with me. You need to let me know when you're coming home. I need to know how you're getting home. all of these things, and that's when that is before they become of the majority, and then they learn to understand that it's important for them to have someone keep tabs. Now it's different probably for boys than it is for girls. Girls tend to always need to keep tabs on each other because, let's face it, it's a much more dangerous world out there for women. So
Mm-hmm.
they tend to be more protective of each other. I've asked this in my classrooms where I teach, and I ask about, the young women there because they're college age, if they keep tabs on each other when they go out. Every hand always goes up. So we tend
Mm.
to know that we're supposed to. It's when we're parents is that it kind of gets tricky because they don't always want you in their business, but you need to know enough so that if they're in trouble, you can at least provide a description of maybe what they started out wearing. Maybe they changed their clothes later, but also who they were supposed to be with. If you know at least your friends' first names and a general idea, that'll give you a chance if something happens, if they're in an accident, if they're, if they get stuck, if they get stranded, if there's a fight somewhere, if there's a shooting somewhere,
Oh,
and you find out and you have no idea that they were even supposed to be there. This is the stuff that causes us anxiety, but it's just
yes,
for our safety
yes.
and theirs that they keep some kind of tabs. I mean, this is just, we grew up without a curfew. I never had a curfew,
We
but
didn't have cell phones either.
but exactly, we also didn't have cell phones. So you knew where. It's always easier to sneak around actually, but you also knew that you could call someone if you got in trouble. Now there are no payphones. Um, so you have to do what you can, and you have to establish that when your kid gets their first cell phone, that's when you start establishing these are the boundaries. And a lot of kids, I think Sarah got her first cell phone, maybe she was 9 or 10, and a lot of times they get them even younger than that.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to establish to them, one, this is my phone because unless they got a job, it's your phone because you're paying for it.
Right.
And I need to know where you are. I need you to check in when you're out somewhere and I need to be able to see where you are. And you don't have to necessarily be sneaky, or you can and just put their location on and they don't need to know that you have their
Yeah,
location on.
that might
You
be a
know,
thing. Maybe they should know that but then they could also know how to turn it off, right?
yeah, exactly. So if they have their location on and you have yours on, so they know where you are. So when you're saying I'm coming to get you, they know how far you are too. So we all
Mhm.
do we do that, but like I said, mine is 22 years old and she's very much a where are you mom kind of person. So if
Yeah.
I go out with my friends, she wants to know what time I'm coming home. So she has to check my location to see, well, where is she? I can't believe she's still out this late. So, the we've switched roles. But
Hmm.
when you have a young one, especially if they have a phone, you need to make sure that they're always checking in.
Ah,
You
yep.
know, that is an excellent prescription of advice. Now, I will say a lot of our checking in now is pretty much when we are leaving town. And because my children are adults and live in other countries, we still call each other if we are leaving where we normally are.
Hmm.
Like if I'm going up north to see mama or some friends, or I'm going someplace uh, where I'm not normally at home, just for fun, and this is not even considering checking in. We're just telling them what we're doing because they don't think we have a life anyway. But like on WeChat last night, um, Eric and I went to see a concert with our neighbors. Our Filipino neighbors have a band, and they always invite us to their stuff. And we actually went, took some pictures of ourselves at the event, a little small recording of our friends playing, and put that up on WeChat. And that was just us saying, these are your parents out having a date. We're having a good time.
Hmm.
But that kind of thing keeps the connection so that what if there's an accident on the way back from the concert or something? They do know where we were at the last time that we communicated, that we weren't at home, we were somewhere else. So those kind of connections, even though they're just for keeping up social interaction, having a conversation about what we're doing, we still do that kind of stuff. Like if Lavinia is going to some kind of outing with her friends, they're having like a special Thanksgiving dinner at a friend's or something, she'll like send some little picture of them going or being there or coming back from there. And this is, I mean, like if something happens, I can't be in China in like 2 hours, that's a long flight. But it's just keeping communication open. And Lorelai, she and James are up in Chicago. Whenever they're doing something fun or telling me about what Royal's doing in school, they'll send some little picture of him, in the place where they are or some event that they're attending. It's just about communicating, not even necessarily checking in, but just communicating.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is them understanding that you're not trying to pry into their personal life so much as being aware that things do happen. I think there was some kind of accident during the time Zakia was in Korea, and there was some kind of boat accident, I think.
Yes, there was.
I mean, and everybody was calling me, "Is your daughter all right? Is she all right?" Because I mean, I didn't know if she'd gone to that. I think it was a concert or something. Mm-hmm. I didn't know, so of course I called her and made sure she was okay. And she said, "Well, no, that's far away from where I'm at." Well, I mean, I didn't know, and so it's good to know these things. I mean, you can imagine if you hear about some kind of an accident somewhere and it's where your child was supposed to be, some event like that recent concert where 8 people died.
Yeah,
9 people.
9
yeah.
people. Yeah.
And that was the same thing when the marathon bombing was here.
Yes.
We happened to be in New York that weekend. We had taken one of Sarah's friends and her and gone to New York. But I knew that when they heard about the bombing, I says, everybody I know knows that I live in Boston, and they're all going to be calling and saying, where, are you okay? Were you there? Like, of course, everybody knows I don't run, even if somebody's chasing me. But but it would have been, had we been in town, because we usually would go away. We used to go to Florida, but now, that particular day, weekend, we decided, oh, okay, we're going to go to New York for a few days. But I said, what if had we been in town, chances are we would have gone to the marathon and just, and watched. So, because I did have friends running. So, I mean, I violated my one rule, which is to never tell anybody when you're out of town.
Right.
And I went on Facebook to let people know I'm not there. I'm in New York. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But
and the same thing happened when there was a bombing at Lavinia's school at Northern.
Yeah.
And I got calls from so many parents, friends. Is Lavinia okay? And I said, Lavinia's safe. Lavinia's in China this year, studying abroad. But oh my goodness, what a world we live in, that checking in is more than just knowing how things are going. It's keeping tabs to make sure the rest of your family members are safe.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's probably the most frightening thing when your child does go far away, whether it's abroad or way across country. You can't just, jump in your car and run over their house and check, because they're way away.
But I think that makes it even more important to get back to our question, which is to know your friends.
Right.
Yeah, to know your children's friends, because I knew Sarah made friends when she was in South Korea this past summer. Mm-hmm. And of course I follow her on Instagram. But she follows me too. So but she, so I said, you need to post more things. But I could recognize her friend. She talked to us every single day. And she called us every day, and she talked about, where she was going and what they were doing. And I could see, when they went on their vacations and their little outings, but I knew who the friend group was that she was hanging with. And that helped because, she's making these international connections, but it was, and which was important, but it was also important for me to know who they were,
Right.
and for her to, because if something happens over there, well, who was she with? She was with her friend Siham. She was with Fortuna. She was with,
Well,
she,
that's the thing. Yeah. I mean,
so
do
you
you
would
know
be
your
able to,
children's friends' names?
yes, yes,
Do you
and
have
you
their
should.
phone numbers? Yeah. So I think that's one thing. Well, all the times the kid was in college, and there was a couple of times I called her roommate about something, I had to check on her or whatever. And I mean, nobody got offended. They thought, oh, that's nice. Your mom called. Now as a kid would get concerned if I called, like when she went abroad, and if I called her at some odd hour, uh, because the time difference was so difficult to remember. And I'd call her and it'd be in the middle of the night for her, and she might panic like, oh, is something wrong with grandma? So I try not to do that kind of thing, because I know it's stressful when you're far away and you
Yes.
do a phone call at some odd hour from home. But it is important to check in. And she did a lot of traveling, and so she would let us know, okay, I arrived in Cambodia, or I arrived in Indonesia, wherever she was at, she would let us know that she had arrived safely. Maybe send me a photograph or something like that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's a point where you can't worry. I mean, if they're gone, you can't go get them. You have to just trust that everything will be okay. Because there was a couple of trips that she took where she went by herself, and I'm like, okay, so there's nobody to call if I don't hear from her again. I just gotta pray and trust. But she would let me know she was okay. But you have to have a person in mind. If something happens, like, okay, what happens if they don't show up at work for a couple of days, and you call the job and say, oh, it's where is she at? Oh, she hadn't been here for a few days. What? And then so you have to think, how do I trace back to her last thing? So in a sense, it's good that you have things like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these things where, I mean, it's silly. Okay, you go to dinner and post your food. Yeah, but we can trace you were at that restaurant. So it's a good thing that
it has a
Or
little
even get
location
one of
on
those
it.
things that they had on the Incredibles, where they were able to find out. She says, "Do you know where he is?" She told her husband, "Do you know where he is? Would you like to know?" And she
But you
pressed
know what?
the
Your
little.
FBI agent on that's through your phone already knows where you are anyway.
well, that's the thing. Your phone knows where you go all the time,
When
and
people
it'll
start talking about putting microchips in there, said you don't need a microchip. Your phone tracks
this
every
is a
place you've
tracking
ever
device.
been. It is the
It,
best
The
tracking
phone is a
device.
and
tattletale.
so is your car.
How
And
did
so
you,
is your
and you're
car.
driving past someplace? How did you like that restaurant? I didn't go in there.
Yes, yes. So this is the thing, is that there is always some place, and I watch a lot of procedural cop shows. I'm like the
Mhm.
FBI's and all of the top,
NCIS,
all the CISs, all the
SWAT.
all SWAT, Blue Blood, everything. I watch just about every cop show and all the Chicago shows. Shout out to the Chicago groups. But the thing is that when people go missing in these shows, I watch how they track. Now, granted, there's a lot of Hollywood in that, but still, I watch how they ask, well, did you know your friend? Did they go to the parents and they're asking, well, no, she wasn't that. And a lot of times these kids are lying to their parents or whatever because they're in these strict environments and they don't know. So I says, you have to open up their communication with your kids while they're still kids. I mean, yes, there is going to be
Mm.
some sneaking around because they're teenagers, but you have to have and you have to establish, one, that they're friends, and when they're no longer friends, because sometimes that happens,
Yes, that's true.
and you have to be able to say, if you ever get in trouble, you need to be able to call me or let somebody call me. So your friends should also know uh who you are.
Have your number.
Yes.
Their
Yes.
friends should know you, and you should know who their parents are if you can, but at least somebody should be able to get in touch with you. Like I say, I know Sarah's friends, and I tend to have their phone numbers. I do not follow them on social media because that's just creepy. But
yeah, to
you know,
have your mother following your friends. I mean, sometimes it happens, but
I do, and I always get these things because they're in my book, and some of them her college friends I do, some of them I have
yeah,
followed, and they follow me too. But
yeah. I mean, that
but when
happens.
you're but if because you're all grown, but when if you're following your teenagers,
Yeah, that's creepy because
that
you don't
that's
want to know
kind of
what teenagers do. But I want to say greetings to our dear sister Viata from Florida, down there where it's warm and sunny. And tune in to
Not today.
oh yeah, y'all getting
Oh,
that
sorry.
weather.
It's cold today.
Sorry. Yeah, but make sure at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, you tune in to Soul Purpose Healing live on the Soul Purpose. Let's see, what is her Facebook page? Yeah, it'll be Soul Purpose Healing on Facebook. Watch it tonight and listen in on the Female Solution Global Radio TV show tonight, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. For Viata. Thanks so much for watching, Viata. We appreciate you so very much. Yeah, she's doing a really great show on mothers handling grief. And I say you definitely got to tune in, because when something happens to a child, that affects your whole life. But now I want to ask a question. How long would you wait to call police if your grown child was missing? Because
Well, it depends on what you have established as a time for them to be home. If you go to bed and the next day they're not there, I'm calling now.
Yep.
mm,
And chances are I'm calling, I may even check before then because even when Sarah goes out late and she may come in 2, 3 or whatever, I usually wake up, check her location, but she still will knock on my door when she comes in and let me know that she's home safely
Yeah.
because you don't sleep until your child
You
comes home.
don't. And it
yeah,
doesn't
you
matter
don't.
if they're grown, especially if they are living at home still.
That's true.
You know what? And that's the thing is that I don't necessarily know if calling the police is the first thing I would do, only because they will say, well, if they're grown, they have to wait 24 hours. I would start out calling the friends. I would, if their phone is off and you can't get in touch with them, I would start calling the friends that I would think would know where they were.
Yeah.
But even before I would call the police because the police may not do anything
They
for
might not do
24 hours.
anything.
You know, I agree with what you say, but isn't some of that really television Hollywood stuff?
No,
That
no, it's
24-hour
not.
thing, I don't even think that's true. I think if there is a cause for real concern, they don't go, oh, you got to wait 24 hours till they're missing, because the longer the time it is, the worse the situation may end up
Well,
turning
yeah,
out.
that's the issue with what's his name, Jelani Day.
Yes, is that they did wait.
They did wait.
They don't
Yeah,
they don't jump right to it.
they don't.
Not for people. Let me say it this way. Not for people who look like us.
Well,
Let's
we
just
got
call it what it
1
is.
minute, and then we have to go. And hey to Jody, our Tuesday Female Solution host. Definitely tune in and watch her on Tuesday, 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern. We appreciate you, Jody, down there now in Georgia. Enjoy that. Hopefully decent weather. And we certainly want to thank all of you who have watched us today. Subscribe
Know your
to our
friends.
YouTube
Know
channel.
your kids' friends.
Yes. And make sure you know at least your child's best friend's phone number, name, address, if you had to get in touch with them, just in case your child went missing. Well, we've got to go. Thanks so much for joining us. Tune in again for 3 Black Moms live at 5 Central Time every Sunday evening. I'm Naimah.
I'm Cheryl.
I'm Barbara. We are 3 Black Moms.
See you next time.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naimah. We're three Black moms.